go down and tell the ones Sanduga staff they should tell people up here.
Yeah. Hello. Oh. Yep, 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 yep. Tre.
Should I, if I want to give gifts to someone, should I go?
If you want to go out and give gifts to me, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
Sure, you can.
Okay.
It's all up to you.
Otherwise, I would wait or tell someone to come for the gift. That's why.
I mean, it's all up to you. It's your thing. No, it's wireless. Men du har också klickar om det är någon som vill. Perfekt, jättebra att veta.
Should I be like, should I have my talk shortened then? Or is it because the fight, I guess? There's no immediate speaker.
But after that, it's short break.
Oh, so you mean Wiktoria can start later? Cool, because I know her, so she wouldn't be mad at it. Okay, so it's better to wait for additional people.
Okay. 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 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Perfect.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the exhibition area. I'm Johannes, kind of helping out, kind of sponsor, kind of everything. So before we get started with the first talk here, I'm just going to get some ground rules. You see the square over there behind you? Try to keep people away from standing there, because we've got cameras around this height, so the back of your head will be seen in live stream and recording. So the first talk today is from Mateusz about UI testing, making, I guess, easier or better. You hope? I think so. He's turning it on. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. So let me just see if everything works. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So hi everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm Mateusz, and I'm gonna talk about Patrol, our new open source UI testing framework made especially for Flutter. Just to make it quick, I'm head of mobile at Leancode. Maybe you know this name from Flutter community. We are a software house from Poland that specializes in Flutter. And in Patrol project, I am from the beginning as technical product owner. I just wrote a first POC. And now I'm not so much coding inside. I'm more of a consultant in there. And you can find me at X, Twitter, at this handle. So let's get straight to the point. So the first question that I wanted to ask is, do you use Patrol? Who uses Patrol? OK. Great. I can see a couple of you. But OK, so if you use it, you can totally grab a Patrol cup, mug. So you can just come after the talk and get your Patrol mug. So I wanted to know who uses integration test library or used it at least once. OK. So it's good to know what integration test is, because we will be talking today about what's the problem with it, what were the existing solutions that we were trying to discover, and why we decided to make our own solution, which is the worst choice, probably, because you don't want to make your own framework, but why we had to make our own framework. So yeah, let's start with the problem. So what's the problem? The problem is that there's no good enough Flutter UI testing framework in the market. But what does it mean, no good enough? It means that we found a few problems that are absolute blockers, and you can't continue testing, or you can't test something. So there are problems that are blockers, and end-to-end testing becomes basically infeasible. You just can't do some cases. So we thought, OK, so what are these problems, right? So the first one, the most painful, I guess, and the most inevitable, is that integration tests can't interact with native UI. The second one is, while we were discovering the first problem and trying to solve it, we also discovered that the test code is too verbose, and we deserve some high-level API for integration testing. But let's start with the first one. What it means cannot interact with native UI. So for example, you can have a permission request dialog, and you basically can't just allow it or deny it. Your test will time out, and you got a failure with integration testing. But this is a real issue, because a lot of apps use some permissions. And usually, they ask for the permissions in the beginning or on the first screen. So you can test one screen at most, and you have a blocker. Another case, a web view. Especially if someone has a web view that you can authenticate through or stuff like that, so that you can have a web view also on the second page of your scenario, and you got a timeout, and this is the end of the test. And we spoke to the community, and people from community said, we just stopped integration testing, because if we cannot go through this, then we just don't write integration tests anymore. Another thing is with authentication flows also that don't use WebView. For example, sign in with Google. Sign in with Google will redirect you to some native view. And you can't automate the native view, so you can go through. Sign in with Apple, the same thing. Also, as a backup, it uses WebView, the same thing. So this is the first problem. And the second one is when we look at this test, this code, it actually is just entering text in 3 fields and making 2 taps. So it's 5 actions. But we can see, I don't know, 30 lines of code or something like that, and a lot of noise, a lot of repeating lines, like pump and settle everywhere. And practically each line is a pump and settle in integration tests. So we thought, OK, we think that we deserve something that does it inside, and we don't have to do it. Especially with finders that are not straightforward finders. For example, if you want to find a descendant of something, this one is when you want to find learn more inside a list style, and then you want to find an ancestor of activated text that is a descendant of list style with this key. I don't even know if I said it correctly. That's because it's so complex and it's not readable for human. And first, at the end of the line is dot first to make it even harder. So we thought, OK, there must be something in the market that already solves it, because this is the first thought that we all get, right? We just try to find some package on pub or GitHub, or maybe Stack Overflow has some solutions. OK, so we thought, let's try with the default tooling first. What's the default tooling that we get from the Flutter SDK? We got a test library that's from Dart. It's not related to Flutter. It's awesome. It's just an API for testing, unit tests. Then we get Flutter test, which is also an awesome library that is already in the SDK. And it enables us to do widget tests, and it enables us to do any interaction with the widget tree during the test. And it also uses test as a backend. And we have integration test, which tries to use Flutter test for end-to-end integration testing. And this is the most important of those 3 today, because it really relates to the problems and relates to Patrol. So integration test is just a minimal layer on top of Flutter test. It is a couple of files, literally. And unfortunately, it has problem number 1 and problem number 2. Problem number 2 can be somehow omitted because we can write our own helper methods. And as I spoke to the community, pretty much everyone wrote their own helper methods in integration tests. That's another red flag that something's wrong and we need some high-level API. But the problem number 1 is basically unsolvable in this architecture because Flutter test and integration test just doesn't know anything about the embedder. It doesn't know anything about the platform that is being run on. It's just inside the Dart process, inside the Dart universe. So it knows everything about the widget tree and Flutter internals, but it doesn't know anything about the embedding side. So the one thing that it also does, it tries to bridge Dart tests to native tests. I don't know if you used it. Probably if you used something like a device farm or tried running it on Firebase Test Lab, this is how it works there. So it has some minimum method channel that sends the results back to the native side so that it is being run a bit like a native test, and it outputs some JUnit XML on Android and XC result native output on iOS. And it kind of works with native tooling. It works with Firebase Test Lab, kind of, and I will tell you in a second why I chose this word. So the third problem that we discovered while we were solving the first one and also the second is that we acknowledge that integration test is very minimal. It's a really minimal wrapper. It has a lot of flaws that maybe are not even planned to be solved. It's just, it's not its purpose. It has to just wrap Flutter test. So it has slow and inefficient builds, and it means that if you have 100 tests and you will try to run it on some Firebase test lab or stuff like that, it will need to build 100 APKs for that, which is a really slow building time, and you can pay a lot of money to build it on some cloud CI. There is no isolation between tests, so you either run one test, or if you run them in bundle, they are not isolated. You cannot use sharding. Sharding is a feature of native farms that they can shard tests across multiple devices, so it's faster in execution. And the test durations, test run duration that you see are always less than 1 second. No matter how long the test run, it's always less than 1 second. So the first issue is, as I said, that for each test, it builds again and runs again. So you don't know what happens. So you think, OK, I can solve it in a simple way. I can just put all of my tests, all of my main functions inside one main and run it. Who tried it? OK, I can see. Yeah. So yeah, this is something that, like, the first thought that you have, OK, I can somehow work it around. But then one of them fails, and you expect to have a report that has 3 passes and 1 failure. But if it crashes, then the whole process will crash. And when the whole process will crash, you won't get to generate reports, so you have no reports. So you could have 98 passed tests, and 99th test will crash, and the whole process crashes. So there's no isolation between them. And also, you always can see below 1 second test duration, no matter what happens. So we thought, OK, there's another solution that's around the market. It's Appium, the most popular open source mobile UI testing framework. And it's a black box testing solution. It has no official support for Flutter. It uses Flutter driver, which is a black box old solution from Flutter SDK. Is not actively developed anymore. It's not abandoned, but it's not actively developed. It's a black box approach, so you can't use your keys, your code from the app. You can't use code that you used in widget tests, stuff like that. So you have whole another code in different language. And the device farms have to support it explicitly, since the architecture is black box. And it's not compatible with Firebase Test Lab, because it looks like that, and you have to have your own server. You have to write some scripts in Java or Python or JavaScript, then it gets to the server, then it gets instrumented. So we used it in one project, and we had a lot of issues. For example, you have weakly typed things, because there are strings anywhere. It's easy to make errors. Not all finders are available in Flutter driver, not all finders from Flutter test, because it doesn't expose them via API. We needed to fork it. And some features have different behavior, so we had to fork also Appium Flutter driver. So we had to fork 2 libraries to make it work for our project. So we thought this is unacceptable, and we as Flutter community can do better, and we deserve some first-class framework. So we tried to make it, and this is Patrol, Flutter first UI testing framework. And what Flutter first means is that the purpose of the Patrol, the whole purpose is to be made for Flutter apps. It's written in Dart. The API is in Dart. And what are Flutter apps? From our perspective, it's 90% of Flutter code, 90% of Flutter views, Flutter widget interactions, and we only want to be enabled to interact with native world. It's not like we want to have most of our code about native. No. We just want to be enabled. So we use Flutter test for Flutter features, because why not? You already have your widget test, golden test. You like Flutter test. It's well maintained. It works. It's from Flutter SDK, so we also use it. But you can use native test automations, such as UI Automator for Android and XCUI test for iOS, which are official automators for native sites, to interact with native UI. But you can interact from Dart code. You just write Dart code. And I will show you the code in the next slide. Also, we try to offer smart defaults. And what it means is, like you said, a lot of you made your own helpers. So we try to make those helpers once for all, so that you just can use it. And we want to be as compatible with native tooling as possible. And what it means is, wherever Android native tests, UI tests can be run, or iOS native tests can be run, we would like Patrol tests also to be able to run. And we try to make it with every single PR that we make to Patrol. So what are the features? So the first thing is native automation. I also added PayPal here because I heard from a lot of people that Patrol helps them with payments, because a lot of payments are native SDKs, third-party SDKs, and you can't go through the process, because end-to-end integration testing is all about testing business process, and you want to, for example, complete the order and you can't. So how it looks like, you can see the code. It's just you get, in your Patrol test, you get Patrol tester, like your widget tester, and who knows, okay, I will ask it later so that it's easier, the question, but as you can see, you can just use .native and you have all the native features. So, for example, enable cellular, disable Wi-Fi, enable dark mode, select find location on the dialog, grant permission when in use, because you don't want to manually select this button, you just want to grant permission. You want to open notifications and tap first notification, so you get back to your Flutter testing and you can do what you want. So you write it in Dart. This is the, I think, first framework when you can write Dart code to automate natively. So let's get through the examples. The first one is permissions, I think the most popular use case. So you can just grant permission when in use. You can deny permission, and that's all, as you could see on the screen. About the rest of the finders, I will explain them later because they are Flutter finders. Notifications are the same. You can just grant permission for them, and then you can press home. It just presses home button on your device or emulator. Open notifications drawer and tap on notification by selector. Selector is kind of a thing like a finder, but we made it for native things so that it has different names, so you don't take it by mistake as a Flutter finder. Location permission, this is pretty much the same as any other permission, but we just added course and find location for you. And actually, you can automate everything. For example, this is a Patrol test that just creates a contact in Google Contacts app. Because UI Automator and XUI test, if you are run in instrumentation mode, you can actually click on anything on the screen. So even on your launcher, launcher is also an app on Android. So you can actually click on anything. If you want to, for example, test your reset password flow, so you go to Gmail app and click on the link and check if it validates, you can do so. But moderation is a virtue. This is really important because, the more you depend on other apps, the more flaky your test is, and the less sure you are that it runs smoothly. Because Gmail app can be different on any emulator, other devices, and I wouldn't even mention, for example, other manufacturers. If you have Samsung phone or Xiaomi phone, you have whole different experience of apps, so probably it will fail. But you are just enabled to do so, and this is the most important thing, to not have blockers. Especially when you have some enterprise client that tells you that you need to make end-to-end integration tests. We had this case, and if you tell them that we can't do this test because we can't accept permission, this is kind of a bad answer to answer your client. So it's good to have this framework that enables you to do so, just in case. So what about problem number 2? While solving problem number 1, we thought, okay, the finders are awesome. It's an awesome low-level API. Flutter test finders are awesome in terms of low-level API. But we need something that's just more convenient and faster to write. And we thought of this. And who knows what's the inspiration for this syntax? Excuse me? No, no Kotlin. jQuery, yes. You can redeem the reward after the talk. jQuery, exactly. We thought back in the good old days, we had jQuery where we could actually find anything just by having those neat syntax of finding things. So we thought, why not? It would be much more convenient to use if I could just use it like this. So as you can see, you can just find a sign-in text and tap on it. You can find email text and try to enter some text into it. So let's see at how it works. They are just Flutter finders, by the way. So our finders extend Flutter finders. So you can use them with other tests. You can use it in your widget tests. You can use it in your golden tests. It's just to make things more convenient. If you provide a type in here, it will be find by type. If you provide a string in here, it will be find text. If you provide symbol from Dart, because we wanted to be like jQuery, and we thought, OK, this is pretty valid in Dart, so why not? It's find by key. You could also provide key like here, and it also would work. You can provide icon data, and you can provide regular expression, and you get text containing. Pretty straightforward mapping to Flutter finders. OK, so we rewrite the test on the left, and we get 6 lines of code that matter. As you can see, we pump widget, and we just enter text, enter text, enter text, tap, tap, wait until visible. It's pretty human readable. I can look at it. Even if someone doesn't know Dart or doesn't know Flutter internals, that person can look at it and pretty much see what's happening in there in this scenario, right? So the same thing is with those complex matchers, finders, I'm sorry. So for example, if you want to find something in something, you can do $sign. If you do $sign, it means find a subscribe inside the list view and tap on it. This is the right side. And as you can see, left side is pretty complex, but it's not the whole finder. If we wanted to match the same behavior that's on the right, we would have to write a lot of more code, because we have also timeouts. We take the first one if you have more than one to find. For example, you have 2 buttons. It takes the first one because most people want to take the first one. It does pump and settle automatically. It pumps when it should. It just detects that it has to pump. And it just waits. If you wait for network for half of a second, it would just wait. It won't throw an exception. The same with ancestor. You can have a list style containing activated, and it will return the list style and not activated, so that you can find list style containing activated and then find learn more inside. And you still have your own widget tester. It's just inside patrol tester. So if you say one day, OK, I don't like patrol tester because it has bugs. I want to use widget tester and do something specific. You can do it and just use it. And by the way, you could pass patrol finder in here because it's just a Flutter finder. And last thing is that we just extracted patrol finders out of our patrol library, so that you don't have to pull the whole native automation stuff to just use your patrol finders. If you want to use patrol finders in your widget test or golden test, check out patrol finders on pub. Give us a like and star, because it's just a new package. We just extracted it. We extracted it because it was also convenient for us on our purpose, because we don't want to have everything in one package. It's easier for our repository, but it's also easier for you. So to wrap up, patrol is just a replacement for integration test. It's just a replacement for that part. We love test, we love Flutter test, they are good. We just replace integration test. And with that, we fixed majority of the wrong behaviors or lacking behaviors. You can bundle all tests with single build and run 100 tests on your device farm, so you pay less. You have full isolation. If one crashes, other 99 will just run. And you have a report. You can use sharding on Firebase Test Lab, so you shard between multiple devices. You have real test run durations because they are measured on the native side. And you can just use hot restart, for example, as you could use with your Flutter tooling, because you still want to use this developer experience from Flutter. So we exposed patrol develop commands so that you can use hot restart. And you could say, why bridge Flutter test with native tests? Because clients would say that there's already a lot of native tooling in our project that we used and we loved. And our QA team loves this, and they want to use it because native tooling is like huge. They have device farms like Firebase Test Lab, AWS. They have test runners, Marathon, Bluepill. They have a lot of reporting tools like TestRail, TestLink, X-Ray. And none of these work normally with Flutter tests. They only work with native tests. So it's important for our community to bridge these two worlds, because then we could actually work with the same tools and convince our customers that Flutter is just like any other mobile tool. So as you can see, sharding just works. You can use hot restart with Patrol Develop. Patrol CLI is a package that you install through Dart pub. And it's open source. We have extensive docs. You can trust us. You know how it is. You mustn't trust anybody, but you got to trust somebody. We use it internally. It's made for our QA team, and we use it in our production-grade apps. And just to wrap up, thank you very much for this. And please help us. How you can help us? You can like us on pub. You can give us a star on GitHub. You can follow Linkcode. You can contribute. This is the best, but I know that also it's the most difficult. And you can use it and provide feedback. This is, I think, the most helpful thing that you can do at the lowest cost. You can just try it. Thank you very much.
Yes, so thank you, Mateusz.
Questions? Or are there any questions? Or
I don't think we have time for questions.
okay, cool. So if you have any question, you can approach me after the talk.
Yeah, he'll be around.
I don't want to, be a blocker in here.
Okay, so thank you, Mateusz. So for the next talk, it's Wiktoria talking about setting up projects, which I think a lot of us can see is a pain to do. So give a warm hand to Wiktoria and welcome her on the stage. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Wait, okay. Oh, yeah. Let's check it out. It's not, oh, it seems working. Okay. So let's start. Hello, everyone. I wanted to show today on this talk how to boost our efficiency and how to set up project like a pro. In our developer life, we have a, so maybe I will just use the no. We have a project, and each project has a timeline and has a scope. But during the time, mostly, our project looks like we are run out of time, and mostly our scope increase. And we are looks like this cat. We are just this cat typical. And today I would like to show I was this cat also. Hi, I'm Wiktoria. I'm a Flutter developer at Prasui Group. And previously, I was working for the software houses companies. And I was this cat. And I prepare several projects. And in typical project lifetime, it was like, oh, we have to estimate, for example, building flavors, building another stuff. And it takes time. And we just looks like this cat when our scope increase. So, well, today I would like to show how the tools make our work more efficient and increase our performance. Today we can see the presentation about Shorebird, and we can have a lot of tools and packages that we are using on our normal life behind the scene. We have a lot of packages like Chopper, Shorebird, Build Runner, Copilot, a lot of stuff that make our work more efficient, and this is all developer tools. And today I would like to think about how many of you have just checked how to downgrade Flutter after upgrade because on the stable version, just something not work? Yeah, it's our common issue. And sometimes when we are a developer, we have to work for 3 projects. Like, this is our first one. We love this project because we just develop it during this now. And sometimes we have to maintenance and swap to another project, like some maintenance task, and we have to swap between the versions. In the old way, when we wanted to change our SDK, we have to re-download our all Flutter SDK. And to do that, we have a Flutter version management. It's the common stuff like in the Ruby. We have a Ruby version management, and we have similar tool in the Flutter. And FVM, it's like really easy to set up because we can only install Homebrew, later just put some FVM style, install FVM, like just putting some 2 commands to install FVM. And when we update our FVM, like update our environment variable, we have access for each instance of the terminal, and we can use it everywhere. And I have to show you some basic commands. First, we don't know which version we have. And for example, after typing FVM releases, we can see the list of the available Flutter versions. And we can only use, for example, Flutter install stable. And after press this command, and for example, use FVM install some particular version, and press FVM list, we can see our currently version on our machine, and it's quite easy to check out between the versions. And for example, for the project, when we wanted to set up our FVM, we only use this command, and this command generates as a config file looks like this, and we only have to update some git ignore file to and we have this config file, and new person in the team only have to configure FVM and only just put this on his machine. And when he don't has this Flutter, he see that this version is not installed, and it's only just press yes. And why we should use it? Because it's easy to switch between the versions. It's really great for CI/CD integration. We are sure that we can use the same version between the team. So each of the team has the similar version of the Flutter, and it increased our productivity. And this is our advantages of using FVM. So let's go back to our developer soul. And when we are just developing our code, we wanted to push it to, for example, our dev environment, to UAT, and finally to our client, to the production. And yeah, we have some environments. And when we have environments, like everybody in the Flutter community has in mind, is the flavors. But the flavors command just means like flavors configuration. How many of you configure flavors manually? Raise your hand. And it was like, for my perspective, I know how to do it, but it was error-prone and time-consuming. So we have a tool, and we have a package that is Flutter flavors. And thanks for that, before we can install this package, we have to have a Ruby version, some Ruby gem to install the last Xcode project gem to make our script, invoke our script. And in the project installation, especially we add this dependency in our pub/spec.yam file. We add this, and after that, let's define some basic script to generate all this stuff. So let's define our script. Firstly, we define app name, and we configure our bundle ID for iOS and Android section. And as we can see, we have an example, and our dev flavor has a different bundle ID compared to, for example, UAT and production config. And we define 3 basic config files for our flavor. And we can add custom icon config. We only have to define some custom assets for each of our flavor, and we only just upload our asset to project file folder and just update our script, icon script for each flavor. And yeah, we just invoke script generation, and after that, it generates 3 flavors per each platform. Right now, it's available for macOS also, but I did not test it. But we have opportunity to check it out. And after invoking this comment, we have example of 3 apps that we are currently has in our after our script will generate all this flavor. And why we should do it? Because it's flavor setup. It's error prone, so I really encourage to do it. For example, when we have opportunity to use it for macOS, we don't have to deep dive to configure all projects. And it's allowed to icon generation, and we can, when we update one specific property, it's generate launch JSON file for us. And the last, it's generate our Firebase setup. We can define a similar way that we upload the assets, icon assets, and it generate us each changes for each platforms. I think it was really short presentation and short example how tools increase our work efficiency. For my perspective, I've saved 2 days or 3 days each estimate for each project, because it's easy to only define some script on our YAM file instead of do it manually. And we have a lot of examples that we can generate and automate our work instead of do it manually. This is a Q&A session. We have materials. I have a repository upload here, so when you wanted to scan it, yeah. And this is the Q&A session. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions? Maybe later.
No questions? So it was all clear, apparently?
Okay.
Great. Okay, so thank you so much. I think it's break now. So you get to try to set up your computer. Yeah. So stretch your legs and go for a break.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Hello, everyone. So the conference program is once again starting. So everyone who wishes to see the main stage talk, please enter the main stage right now, or take your seats for Cagatay.
Yep. You can see there is this bag. It is my bag.
So everyone, break is over.
Are we ready?
Yeah. So, time for our third talk in the exhibition area. So now we will listen to Cagatay talk about modals and like multi-page modals. So give a warm hand to Cagatay.
Thank you. Okay. I guess all good, right? Yes. Welcome, everyone. I'm Cagatay. This is a difficult name, but you did well. Thank you. And I'm from Turkey. I've been living in Finland for 12 years. I'm a GDE for Flutter and Dart, and Flutter Competence Lead at Volt, also known as DoorDash International. Who made at least one order at Volt using Volt app? Okay. We are in Scandinavia. Yes. So we started using Flutter at Volt in 2021 for our retail business only. And after the success and satisfaction with Flutter, its usage in the company expanded. We covered all merchants, and including the restaurants, retails, flower shops. Actually, there was a one order Christmas tree through Volt. And then this slide summarizes our main apps in the company. The customers make orders using iOS and Android native apps, using Volt mobile applications. And then the merchants confirm these orders using our Flutter app, makes them ready to be delivered by the couriers. And then couriers delivers these orders using a React Native app. No booze. Okay, so what happened at FlutterCon? We released this open source package called Volt Model Sheet. Anyone using it? Okay, there is one. Good. And it is this model that provides configurable responsiveness, switching between dialog and bottom sheet, multiple number of pages in a model, scrollable content within each page, imperative and declarative navigation support, and smooth motion animation for scrolling and pagination. In this conference today, we are releasing the next big update. We just released it thanks to my colleagues. We had 2 hot fixes in 2 hours, but it works. In this new release, we are now adding support for more customization through theme extensions. As you see in the dark theme, it has sharp borders. In the light theme, it has rounded borders, so shadow color and many other configuration. And we have already significant improvements for top bar and page title. And in the next versions, we are planning to focus on improving accessibility. Yes, accessibility should come first. We are going to focus more, maybe with 1.0, when we have the stable version. Still, this is 0.1. Even in this version, there is quite many breaking change. And we will add support for new model sheet types. For example, now it is switching between dialog and bottom sheet, but we might have full page sheet or side sheets. It is very easy to configure. You will see in the next slides. And today's talk will be a shorter version of the one I did in the FlutterCon, but better. We will clarify what we mean by multi-page model sheet, best practices, and we will focus on in the implementation part, we will focus on imperative and declarative navigation, responsiveness, and implementing motion specs for the model sheet. But let's start with the design. And I want you to take a moment now and think, how would you classify the different screen types in a mobile application? Different screen types, how would you classify those? So we consider these screen types: pages, sub-pages, and models, 3. So page is a primary view, and user interacts in a digital product with this primary view. It serves a distinct function, presents specific content to the user. And here you see the, in our merchant app page, the home screen, the page. And then there is this sub-page concept. It is branching out from main page, offers more detailed information, features related to the parent page. And this is an example of sub-page in our merchant app. Clicking an order in the task card, it leads to the picking page where merchants prepare their orders, pick and prepare their orders. And then there is models. They are temporary overlays, appear above a page or sub-page, ideal for short-term tasks, notifications, and additional information. And they don't require user to navigate away from the current context. This is our merchant app again. We can disable a burger from the menu using a model while staying in the same context in the menu editor page. But what do we mean by multi-page model sheet? Multi-page model sheets allows users to navigate through multiple but interconnected views within a single model context. And this is a real-life example from our app again. Order comes in, user taps the card, sees this model, and in this model, user directly can confirm the estimate that came from our backend. Also, from this view, they're able to tap and modify the estimate. And in this case, we push them to the second page in the same model, and they can change the time there. Or user realizes that suggested time was already good, they can navigate back with the back button on top left. And a bit more complex scenario, before accepting the order, user may want to do something else, like pressing the 3 dots button and then want to call the customer using the call button there, or might want to reject the order. Then we have more complex but straightforward flow. But Vault model sheet is useful, powerful, we believe, and this great power comes with great responsibility. And in the next slides, we will cover the practices. Is there anyone using Strava? Do we have runners here? Yes. Have you used the Maps tab in Strava? Maybe. Now let's roast a bit. But I mean, this is all just to show it. The first challenge is with the model sheet is that lack of smooth transitions that leads to disruptions in user experience. Like in this recording, you see the unintuitive transitions while navigating in the model. Do you think this is unintuitive? Yeah, I think so too. And with Vault model sheet, we prioritize smooth transitions by maintaining continuity when changing the pages. So you see there is this, it's slow animations, but we don't open and close a new thing. Another thing is that navigation flow in the multi-page model sheet should be crystal clear. We can ensure this with proper placement for control buttons. And in this recording, now you are in the screen, you want to go back, but you are only in an empty view, and there is only close button, but you want to go back. When you close it, it will close everything, or will it go back? So it confuses users, and users should understand what is the next step. And we have in our model sheet sticky action bar at the bottom. Even when you scroll, it is visible, and these back and close buttons are always visible, so that no matter how much you scroll, these controls are there. It ensures an intuitive UX. You know what you can do. It's always there. and optimizing space for scrolling. So there will be cases that sheets might be scrolled if the content doesn't fit. And this is a big problem, especially when you have a mobile phone and the keyboard appears. I hate it, even when designing this. It's a very big problem. In these cases, we should utilize the available space efficiently. And in this recording, again, you can see that Strava fails to utilize the available space when scrolling. It's very confusing. OK. But in our case, scrolling is managed gently. And each page is the page height is intrinsic in each page. And if there is more content, the page is at maximum height, and user can scroll to see the more context. So here is intrinsic height. When it gets smaller, users can start scrolling, and the navigation controls are always visible. OK, the last one. Complex model designs. And this is a common pitfall when designing complex models, because you are overloading the user with excessive information and numerous flows. And this is something that bothered me the most when I was using Strava. Like in this model sheet, you have so many alternative flows. So if there are this many flows, maybe you should just start a different page or a sub-page, right? Like, there are so many things to do here, and it can easily overwhelm the user if the even performance is not smooth. You can see when changing tabs, the performance is not smooth here. It really affects the user experience. Now, OK, implementation part. If you ask me the most important 3 topics in Flutter, to master it, I will say first, understanding the trees, widget tree, element tree, render object tree. The second is rendering pipeline. And the third is how the navigation works. When you understand these 3, you understand all Flutter framework, in my opinion, and I will show how I utilize this in this context. Let's start with the imperative and declarative navigation. Who is using imperative navigation only? Imperative navigation. Everyone is using declarative navigation? So you're all using Navigator too? OK, I'm happy because I love Navigator too. Let's start with the basics. Material app has 1 or more router widget. And router widget has 1 navigator widget. Navigator widget has a stack of root classes, and it also has an overlay widget. Routes have 1 or more overlay entries. And now, in the imperative navigation, we push and pop routes to the existing navigator widget, right? Navigator, context, pop, push. We imperatively tell what to do. In the declarative navigation, we build the entire navigator widget with a list of pages. And each page in the list creates a route. And a model route in the navigator widget is located above another route. So here you see the home page, the page route, and then the pop-up route overlaid on top of it. And I really like this here, the clever implementation of routes in Flutter, because it's based on abstraction. Route is an abstraction, an entry in the navigator widget. Overlay route is an abstraction for the interaction with the navigator widget and the overlay widget. Transition route abstracts push and pop animations. Model route abstracts blocking interactions with previous route. Page route and pop-up routes are concrete route implementations. Page route is for replacing the entire screen, and pop-up route overlay the previous route. This is the summary. And we show the models in the Flutter framework. We tend to do it in an imperative way. So when we want to show model sheet, we call this method. We don't do this in declarative way. But with what model sheet, we provide a custom route that opens the door us for using Navigator 2. Especially these 2 fields are important. And if I'm not wrong, they are lacking in the model sheet routes provided by Flutter, because you are managing a state with declarative navigation, and you need to know when you are dismissing the route, the model, with tap or drag if it is a bottom sheet. So we provide this route within a page. And inside this route, we call the qubit here. Is Felix here? I'm not sure. Yeah. It's very good. It works very well. The declarative navigation works very well with qubit and block. and also provider. So we can say close sheet when these two happens, but this lacks in imperative navigation, so it is hard to manage the declarative state. Now, the build method in the router delegate, this is the router delegates build method, we return a navigator widget when the router widget is rebuilt. We can manage the state of the router widget with a qubit, block, provider, and rebuild whenever needed. And OK, this was supposed to be the first screen. So at first, we are in the home screen visible state. And this is where we are. We click now the bottom sheet, this button. And then we tell the block that, OK, change the state. So now the state is model sheet visible state. And then in this case, we have first the home root, home screen's root, and then model sheet roots on top of that. And then we give this page to navigator. And if you see here, there is this unknown. If you have some unknown URL, you just show the unknown page. Well, you can add the home page before it. User goes to browser back button, goes there. But yeah, finally here, the router delegate will return a navigation widget to the router widget, which is correspond a list of pages will correspond to a root stack. And this is how you would navigate the pages with the model sheet using browser address bar. I'm only changing the page index here and see the smooth transitions here. I go to all the pages. And this is why I love Navigator 2. OK, rendering pipeline. This is my another favorite topic, and I believe it's very important. Rendering pipeline is not a Flutter-specific term used to define a model that consists sequential steps to produce a frame. And the end result of the rendering pipeline is the pixels we see in a window. When it is time to produce a frame, Flutter engine calls the draw frame method on the widget's Flutter binding, which starts the rendering pipeline with the build phase. And then the build owner class is the manager of this build phase. All the dirty elements in the widget tree are rebuilt. And after the build phase, we have this pipeline owner class that manages the laying out, painting, compositing, generating drawing instructions. And the output of the paint phase is the layer tree consumed by the engine. And the final output is translated to the GPU. Pixels are drawn on the screen. And what is our role in the rendering pipeline is first, we provide the widget tree to the framework for the build phase. And then we mark the widgets as dirty so that in the next frames, only dirty widgets are rebuilt. And their corresponding elements, render objects, are updated, added, or removed. OK, let's focus on the stateful widget C here. And widget F, which is probably a button. When we press the button, the stateful widget C will be marked as needs builds. And it will be added to the list of dirty widgets. And when the new frame is rendered, all the dirty elements, including widget C, will be rebuilt. Case 1, this H and I, and their elements will be removed. They are not there anymore. Widget C will not be rebuilt. It's a constant widget. The build will stop there. It will not go down. And the element of widget E will be updated. The widget E, we will focus on that. And widget F will be removed. Widget Z will come. This is the most expensive one. And in case 5, any widget, an element will be added to the trees. But let's focus on the widget E and how its parents are. OK, now it's working. Yeah, updating it. So if the height or the widget, if the height or width of the widget E changes, the element is updated and it will be marked as dirty in the layout phase. And if its opacity is changing, it will be marked as needs paint in the paint phase. And in the next ones, the pipeline owner will flush all the dirty ones, and then the render objects will do the necessary operations. And finally, the build owner will finalize the tree, remove inactive elements, and clear the resources. And the layout model sheet in this model is the custom multi-chart layout. And this widget simplifies laying out positioning of the model sheet based on the model sheet type. So you see here that there's this scaffold, and then inside this multi-chart layout, and then this chart layout has 2 children, barrier and the page. OK, custom multi-chart layout here. The children are barrier widget and sheet content. And we know the motto of Flutter. Constraints go down, sizes go up, parent sets the position. And looking at this delegate, we will understand what it means. The first method we are overriding is the delegate of the custom multi-child layout is the getSize method. And in this method, the parent, the custom multi-child layout, sends the constraints down, and we send the delegate decide the size of the widget considering our needs. Then we override the perform layout method. Here we position and set the size of the sheet according to the, again, sheet type. And finally, there is this most important method, should_layout method. And here, after the initial calculation, it only marks if this widget needs a layout when model type changes or given minimum and maximum page size constraint changes. Because, you know, in the rendering pipeline, we have seen this mark needs layout. And if this returns true, it should tell that laying out. Otherwise, it will stay the same. And here, if the screen sizes changes, and after some constraints, the model type changes, then it will change the custom layout of this bottom sheet. OK, I'm running out of time very quickly. This is our motion designer, Masha. She hands over us the motion specs, and we make her happy. And she builds these specs for engineers. She knows that we are using variables, so here the component heights are represented with here some letters. And on the x-axis, you see scrolling distance, right? And at each scrolling distance, you see how the properties change. For example, the opacity, the translation x, y, z at a particular offset. Now let's focus on the motion specs of the hero image that we have. And according to the specs, there are two changes. The opacity will change, and it will scale from here. The image will scale from 1.1 to 1 when the image is visible. So there is these calculations here. I don't have time to go details. Also, this is for opacity. So there are some calculations here. But how we do this? Again, Flutter SDK provides us this flow widget, like custom multi-child widget. In custom multi-child widget, you can touch the layout calculations without going to the below layer, rendering layer. So you are still in the widgets layer, and you can touch these layout calculations. With flow widget, you are still in the widgets layer, but this time you are touching the paint phase in the rendering pipeline. And here, what we are doing is that according to the scroll distance, we do these opacity calculations. And then there is this paint children method of the flow delegate. We override it, and we paint the child according to our wishes while staying in the widgets layer, not in the rendering layer. And again, there is this should repaint method. OK? In this should repaint method, again, we mark it as needs paint if the scroll position changes here or hero image height changes. Otherwise, it will not do these operations. And what will we gain? We will avoid extra painting calculations. We will not even touch this perform layout method. So in this rendering pipeline, we are only focusing the paint phase here. OK, this is about how we do the smooth pagination. But I don't have time for it, or do I? I don't. OK, this is very straightforward as well. We have this, again, specs from Masha according to, OK, this is about time. On the x-axis, you see in 350 minutes, 50 milliseconds, we have staggered animations. These are the components here. Yep. And then this is how we are doing it. No need to go into detail. You can watch FlutterCon video. I explained there much better. OK, this was it. Thank you. I guess we are not taking questions.
No, unfortunately not. Not this time. But he'll be around, so you can ask him questions later. So thank you so much, Cagatay. And we'll see if Majid manages to mic up. So next speaker on the line. You can bring that. So next speaker is Majid, talking about Globe. So give a warm hand to Majid and wait for half a minute till everything is set up. Perfect. And then let's hide this on the back. You want this?
Use our clicker or not?
No, I'm good. Thank you. All right. Can you hear me? Okay. Because I don't hear.
Not too close, but somewhere there, yeah.
Good? Okay, now it's better. There was, I think I can say this, there was a discussion right now in the speaker channel. One of the speakers, I don't say who, anonymous, said, isn't it a bit colder compared to morning? And another speaker said, no, but I wish it was because the food was very good. I'm full and it's nice and warm. It's hard to stay awake. I hope you are not sleepy. But if you are, don't sleep in this talk at least. Okay, so let's get started. I'm just going to quickly talk about one of the latest initiatives that we started at Invertase. Some of you may have heard from social media, and some of you may have seen me talking about it, or many of you hopefully have not heard about it. It's about yet another, well, it's not yet another, actually, this is the only platform right now that you can leverage and deploy your Dart backend. How many of you have Dart backend right now? That's perfect. So one of the barriers probably for those who have not had Dart backend is the infrastructure, the ecosystem itself. We don't have that many great tooling. We don't have that many great maybe, well, it's better right now, framework for backends. So, and in other languages, like especially older ones, such as JavaScript or like, PHP or Python, or so on and so forth, the tooling ecosystem is good, the frameworks are good, that, and we are developers, we want to build and, get the business happy and ship, right? Dart still is not there. However, we're getting there, I believe. We'll see shortly. So one of the things I want to talk, first of all, let me introduce quickly myself. This is not me. This is Mike, my colleague. He was supposed to be with me, but he's not here. But hi, Mike. I think he's watching online. He's the guy behind the whole infrastructure architecture of Globe. And this is me. My name is Majid. I am head of dev at Invertase, and I'm also one of the admin at Flutter community and do a lot of community things for Flutter particularly. So let's talk about, I need to quickly skip some of the slides. Generally, Dart on server, to us, at least at Invertase, and to me particularly, a person who's been in this community for the last 5 years, trying to build and create and make the ecosystem better every day, it's a great combination of having several things under your hand, and why not having them also on server, right? So things like null safety or the type-safe language that we have all under our hand, like the probability or the fact that you can have way small, build a Dart application, let's say, and the optimization over there, or the ecosystem that is growing, the fact that many of us are on Flutter side and maybe we can use the same things, the models, everything that we build in our backend, maybe the same language, port it to Flutter. These are all great, example of having Dart on server. So I don't think anyone should say, no, I disagree. So, well, this is great. The problem, though, is, as I mentioned quickly, it's a lot of things, including deployment. So if you really want to deploy, scale, maintain a Dart backend, if any of you have done backend before, you know that it's going to be challenging. It is hard. So Sometimes, if you have a big team, you scale, then you need to take care of so many things. So two of the things that I can mention here, like let's say 2 terms right now, edge technologies these days. So the Dart on the edge, let's say, this is one of the things that you can do, deployment. Can't you do that? I'll quickly show you then. You can do that right now, and you can leverage those technologies. And also deployment on Dart, in cloud. It's a bit challenging, the second one, though. You can also deploy on different platforms for sure, but building the stack for deployment is difficult. Let's take a look at the edge functionality. What are the edge functions? In fact, the edge functions are the same serverless functions that you know. The only difference is that they're going to be run on the edge, or let's say the edge network. They're way closer to your client. If it's needed, they will be run on the edge, not going back to where the data center is, let's say. So there are lots of benefits, and one of them is definitely latency, right? And in many of the platforms, minimal or to no cold boot times, which is a bit different from like the serverless function, the traditional one that we know. There are players right now that are providing this to like other languages, especially JavaScript, Cloudflare workers, Vercel Edge, or Dino deploy, Supabase function, and so on and so forth. The problem with all of this is that they are all supporting JavaScript. So, well, you can do one thing though. You can write your Dart and maybe compile it to JavaScript. This is possible. We all know that, right? There might be some, headaches sometimes, or maybe not. But then at the end, if you do that, then you can deploy your Dart to one of these providers. But what we started doing is, to make this available, is we built a package called Dart Edge, which technically is you're writing your Dart code, but you're leveraging all of these platforms underlaying, and you just don't care about anything else, and then you can deploy to all of these providers. However, there's still a thing here, is that we, at the end of the day, compile to JavaScript. We started thinking like, now the Dart backend is growing, which is nice. We have Dart Frog, we have Serverpod, we have other frameworks coming and popping up every day. And you can write definitely your Dart backend. You can use Shelf or whatever else. You go to cloud, nice. Then you Dockerize, fine. Then you end up, OK, now I have a Docker. Now I want to deploy to GCP. Then, OK, now you need to know cloud. OK, well, maybe you have this information or you don't have. OK, anyway, you have a team. Maybe they can take care of it. Then they need to think about not only those small pieces in the beginning, but also thinking about, oh, now I want to scale. Now I want to make sure it doesn't go down. Now I want to make sure in the peak time I run smoothly. I want to spin up the servers at the same time, and so on and so forth. How about like running them on different regions? That's another challenge, right? So that's also a Terraform stuff, which I'm not going to talk about right now. But anyway, that's what I want to think about it. Like, get rid of all of these things that you need to have with yourself when you want to deploy a Dart backend to just a provider, and make sure that it's just deployed and it's running. This is something that we started thinking. We started building Globe. Globe is, in fact, a platform that you can just run a command, just one command, and everything is going to be set up for you in a few seconds, and you have your Dart backend running in the cloud and on the edge. Let me just quickly show you, because it's a short talk, so my main purpose was to showing you how it works. I have two examples here to show you. I hope you can see this. Should I? Are you familiar with these two, Shelf and Dart Frog? OK, sounds good. It's a very simple thing I'm going to do. I'm not going to build the entire backend, but technically, right now in this example, in the Shelf one, I just have a very simple endpoint giving me where I'm running my server and in which port. And at the end, I also print out the headers that we are passing to your response. So you can also take a look at that. So let's imagine now this is your backend. You've built that. We don't mind about the entire things. What we do care is from here. So let's take a look at that. So first of all, you need to install Globe CLI. OK. I have already done that. So I have Globe available in my terminal. And if you look at it right now, there is a bunch of things you can do. Again, it's just the beginning of this project. But you can log into your service, to your dashboard, and then you can link a project, or you can deploy. I just want to focus on the deploy part of it right now. What I can do right now, I just simply can say, hey, Globe, can you just deploy this? I just want to put also verbose so you see what is going on behind the scenes. And then I will go ahead and deploy that. Because I have already deployed this project, it straight away go to queuing this for a new deployment. I will unlink this, delete this project right away, and then show you another new, fresh deployment. So it's going to take a few seconds. So meanwhile, let's do another deployment for another project. I'm just going to go to a Dart Frog. Again, Dart Frog example, very simple one. I have a hello world, like an endpoint here. Hello just says hello world. And I'm just going to go and make sure this is unlinked, which means want to freshly deploy this. I'm going to go and just deploy right now. For the first time, it says, hey, I detected this project. Nice. You want to link this? And I say yes. And then it shows me the organization that I have access to. So I have my personal accounts, and I have my company accounts. I'm just going to go do it in my personal accounts. And then it shows me a list of projects that I already created in this personal account. I can link it with one of these existing ones, or I can just create a new one. Just going to go create a new one. Then it's a few standard questions, like what is the directory of the project? Let's say this is the root. What is the name of your project name? Let's say Dart FNF. And we also detect automatically some of the well-known libraries or frameworks in the community. For example, we detected Dart Frog. We already know how it's going to be built, and it's going to be run. So you don't need to do anything here if you just say, yes, I'm going to use the presets. And that's pretty much it. The project is going to be created, and we're going to just queue this. Let me just take a look at the previous one. The previous one is done. If I click now on this project, I now have my project running, and these are all the headers that I told you. So the closest city apparently that it's running, the data center is Finland somewhere or whatever. So these are all of these headers. OK, this is running. Let me quickly also show you the dashboard. You see this project is running after you log into our dashboard. You have all of the project that you created. You can even connect your project, your GitHub project, to this dashboard. Every time you push, you can actually decide how to trigger the build. Every time you push, then the build is going to be started. You can even have preview, for example. There's no limit, like having a staging, production, or whatever. This one is already in the queue. If you see, it says in progress. Nice. And the other one was already deployed. So there are a bunch of things I want to mention here is that you see you build your stuff. Now everything is up and running. It's going to be automatically scaled up and down. So no worries about that. It's going to take care of rollback and stuff. Like if you really want to roll back quickly to the previous version, you can even do that. There's a bunch of other things that you can take care of your deployments. You have immediate access to your logs. You have also a bunch of settings. For example, changing your entry point or even controlling your regions in our dashboard. Like if you really have an app that needs to be specifically served from EU, just select EU. And that's it, done. You can go and change a bunch of other things. We're going to add billing and usage that you will see the utilization of the memory and the RAM and all the other things in this project as well. So another thing I want to mention quickly about Globe is we are also having a plan to, which hopefully by Flutter Fibers Festival, end of this month, it will be released. You can deploy your Flutter web application to Globe. You can just build Flutter application, web, and just deploy it to Globe, which is going to be globally or on the edge deployed. And you can also add a function folder to that, Flutter web, where you get automatically endpoints per function that you're writing. So technically, you build function base and making your endpoints available to your Flutter web directly in your Flutter project. This is also in our roadmap, hopefully being done by the time. Definitely, I don't have time to show all of this in just 20 minutes, but wanted to quickly go through how you can deploy. You see that it was just a command or connecting a GitHub, and then everything else, few seconds, done. So, before I keep you in this room more, where are all the, there we go. No. At the moment, we do not have public beta. You should join our waiting list. You can go to globe.dev and you can join our waiting list. Hopefully, we will invite you very soon so you can play around with the platform and give us feedback. But hopefully, by Flutter Fibers Festival, we're going to have an open beta, and then you can start deploying your project to all around the world to edge networks without thinking about any type of infrastructure. So that was the talk about edge functions and edge deployments. Thank you very much. I'm open to answer any question, if any, later in our booth.
Yeah, so thank you, Majid. And now it's time for it's the best time of day, at least for a Swede like me. It's fika time. So please walk around, talk with people, grab some snacks or fika, and have a nice time. Thank you all.
Okay, nice. Yeah, mic is working.
Yes, there we go. Hi, everyone. So I hope you had a nice fika. I did. So without further ado, let's introduce Lucas to talk about Widget Book, I guess. So give him an applause. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Johannes. I'm Lucas, co-founder and CEO of Widget Book. And today, I'd love to talk with you about design systems. So you're going to learn how you can supercharge your design system by widget cataloging, testing, and also to simplify the collaboration with designers. But first of all, I'd love to start the presentation with a question. Who of you has already heard about Widget Book? Okay, amazing. Barely everyone. And who of you has already used Widget Book? Nice. And who of you is using Widget Book right now in production? Amazing. Do you want to give the presentation? No, of course. Just joking, I'm going to proceed. So all of you that don't know Widget Book yet, we are open source, and we're building a Flutter tool from Flutter developers for Flutter developers. We are super community focused, so we already participate in and organize Flutter events for the past few years. And besides organizing Flutter events and participating in the community, of course, we're also building a tool. That's why I'm here today. And if you ask yourself the question, okay, like why should I bother listening to Lucas? Like why is he even talking about design systems? That's basically what we've been doing the past 2 years. So we have a web development background, used Storybook.js before a lot. And when we switched to Flutter, there was really no Storybook solution available, so we built it ourselves. And for the past few years, we've building Widget Book together with very big Flutter companies, with small Flutter companies, and basically, we've seen a huge variety of different companies that we support, and I'd love to share those experiences with you today. And for example, we've been having a great collaboration with the Google team. So we've been featured at the Flutter Forward conference this January from Google. That's maybe why a lot of people from you know us. But without further ado, what are we going to do today? Today we're going to learn how you can build your own Flutter design system with Widget Book, how you can quickly test your widgets in different use cases with our add-ons and knobs, and then also how you can simplify the collaboration with designers by being able to share your widgets with them, and then also simplify design reviews. And first of all, I'd love to take you on a journey. So how does app development usually work? Usually, it starts with the designer. So a client has an idea, and the designer's job is it now to first of all satisfy the client by bringing their ideas to life in a design. For the designer, it can be quite an annoying process, and at some point when the client is finally happy with the designer can create his or her design system. And the designer is usually using tools like Figma for it. Just a quick question for you. Who of you is using Figma in their processes? Who of you is not using Figma? Okay, at least a few. But the great thing is that tools like Figma really help the designer building their design system. It's fairly simple for designers. But now it's our job as a developer to do the same in code. And that can be quite challenging. What usually happens is that Flutter companies build something that they often refer to as gallery apps, meaning inside your app, available in debug mode, you can access the screen that basically captures all of the UI components that you have and that you want to reuse, plus the styles. And while that can definitely work, over time it gets quite hard to maintain with a growing number of developers on your team, and it's only very limited in use in comparison to the Flutter design system in Figma, because you don't have the opportunity to see your different Flutter widgets in different themes. You don't have the opportunity to see your different Flutter widgets in different text scale factors, or in different device sizes, or on different languages. All of that is possible in Figma, but not with your gallery app. And therefore, building your own Flutter design system is really quite difficult. And I'd love to show you today how you can really simplify that by using our free and open source widget book for that. So let's jump straight in. The first thing that you would do is you would include our widget book packages in your Flutter app in your pubspec YAML file. And no worries, there are 3 packages, but they all work together super well. So as you can see, we're including not only our main widget book package, but we're also including widget book annotation and widget book generator. So we built an annotation-based code generator that works very similar to Freest. And thereby you can use annotations, like for example, our widget book app annotation, that you basically just include in your app root and your main.dart file when you're using a single package approach, or for a multi-package, for a monorepo approach, or a multi-package approach, however you want to name it. You are creating, first of all, a new package, a new widget book app package. There you have a new main.dart file, and then there you're annotating your widget book app. And once you did it, you let the build runner run. And what happens then is that the entire structure for the widget book is being generated for you. So all the boilerplate code is being done by us. And what you can then do is you can basically tell the widget book with the widget book use case annotations, okay, which widgets do I actually want to include in the widget book? And in this case, we can see that the use case annotation comes with 2 parameters that you have to include, name and type. Name, in this case, we say, okay, the use case is with green color. The type is just the widget that we'd like to include, in this case, the container. And then we're defining a method, in this case, the green container use case. We're returning a column here that is wrapping our container, and then we have to mock the required parameter. In the case of the container, it's the color, so we're defining here that we want to see it in green. And once we do this, and we let the pub build runner run again, we are then able to run the widget book and to show you all of the widgets that you know included. We recommend you to do it with a desktop build, because then you have the chance of having hot reload, so that you can also build your widgets quicker with widget book and not only see them after development, but you can of course also run it on the web, for example. And then there it is. And what you can basically see here on the left side, that all of the widgets from our app were included, and you have really a nice overview of the widgets of your app. And if your app gets large, you have also a search bar available that lets you, that gives you the opportunity to precisely search which widget you'd like to test. And that's already it. So thereby, you can really quickly build your own Flutter design system with widget book. But as I basically mentioned, to make it even better than your gallery app, we have the chance to allow you to quickly test your widgets in different use cases. And how that looks is basically as follows. So first of all, like, the problem is that apps usually nowadays get more and more complex. So your UX design is more and more important, and users have a lot more or a lot higher standards than they used to have before. And basically now we need to support our app with multiple themes, multiple devices, multiple languages. Who of you in this audience is developing the app at least on 2 different themes? Who is using at least 2 different devices that they tested on? Who is having more than 4? More than 8? Okay, yeah, there it usually stops. But already quite a few. And with languages, who is developing the app supporting for more than 1 language? Who got more than 3? More than 6? More than 10? Okay, yeah, here it stops. But as you see, like, quite a lot of use cases have to be supported. And we also have to test it as a developer. And to not turn into a skeleton and basically get very old until you finally test it, we can do it with widget book. So widget book can really become our superpower here of being able to very quickly test our widgets on the different use cases. And first of all, we can do it with add-ons. So basically just where you're annotating your run app command, you can include our add-ons, and the add-ons are very versatile. So first of all, we have the option of including theming in widget book. And what you're currently seeing here is that you can include a custom theme in light and dark mode. But we also support material theme support, or also Cupertino. It really doesn't matter what kind of theme you're going for. It's easily supported with widget book. And that's how it looks in the end. So we can see our tweet widget here being quickly tested on both light and dark mode. But we could also do it for text scale factors. So people like me, waking up in the morning, don't wear their glasses already, that we can still properly see if the widget looks great. We can easily check it also on different text scale factors. And the same then applies also for languages. So we can easily test our widgets on different localizations. In this case, we have the example with English and Arabic. I try to be basically as extreme as possible because, as you know, Arabic, the orientation should also change, and also that is supported in Widgetbook. So you can not only take a look into, okay, how does the language input change, but also how does the orientation change. Both of that is supported with Widgetbook. And you can then also test your widgets based on different device sizes for responsiveness. In our case, we now include the support for iPhone 13 or iPad, but you can really add whatever device to Widgetbook. So pre-built and Widgetbook, we support every Apple device that's available on the market. We try to do it with Android as well, but as you can imagine, you can hire one engineer full-time for a year to include every Android device. Therefore, we give you the opportunity to also define your own custom devices, so you can go really crazy here if you like. But for iPhone 13 and iPad, that's basically how it looks. And you can also take a look in the orientation to change it from portrait mode to landscape mode, for example. And that's it regarding the add-ons, but there's even more. We also have knobs. So what we learned now with add-ons is that we can basically test our widgets against the global properties of the app. But what about widget-specific properties? That's exactly why we built knobs. So how knobs work is we have this use case example here, where we want to include a UI component in Widgetbook. And in this case, the UI component has one required parameter, called text. And we got to provide a string now. And while we could just include lorem ipsum directly in the text, we could also use a knob here. And the knob allows us to dynamically override the value in the Widgetbook UI. And how knobs work is you're just using the context, .knobs.datatype, in this case string, but not only string is supported, we basically support every data type that's available. And that's how it looks then in Widgetbook. So you give everyone that has access to Widgetbook the power to dynamically override the values in Widgetbook, and that works for text, to test overflows. That also works, in this case, for example, for the amount of replies or the amount of likes you get on your tweet. But that also, for example, works for the amount of images you'd like to include. And it is really powerful to test hard-to-reach use cases in your app. Because what usually happened in the past is we had to ship the widget, we had to ship the app to someone, to the demo app, then check it on the mobile phone. We then had to navigate to that page to even build that tweet. Then we had to come up with a text, we had to come up with a few images, and then post it. Wait for it to be posted, and then we can review it. Takes a couple minutes. In Widgetbook, only takes seconds, and that is only in one configuration, meaning in one theme, on one device, in one language, on one text scale factor. And these are only 4 add-ons. You can even include more. So here again, it can get really crazy, it can become very chaotic, and what usually takes hours in testing, only takes a few seconds with Widgetbook. And that's basically it for the open source package. So the benefits that you get for free with the open source package are you can build your own design system with Widgetbook, and you can very quickly build it on test it on all those different configurations. And if you'd like to get started with it, that's the link to our docs, and you can basically get started for free. Otherwise, you can also do the challenge at the booth. But that's not it for the talk. I also promised you that we can simplify the collaboration with designers. So let's wait for now, and let's focus on the design review as well. And what is super important for the design review is basically this situation happened to me so many times in the past. I built a UI, I was super proud of it, showed it to the designer, and the designer really just burned it up. Was like, no, I hate it. Who of you also experienced that in the past? Yeah, also basically everyone. And The problem here is really that it's quite difficult for designers and developers to collaborate because first of all, we as developers have to enable the designer to do a precise review. So what usually happens is we have to define this demo app to ship it to designers. Designers then have to navigate the demo app. If they don't like something, they do a screenshot, then they add comments, and then they post you the screenshot with the comment together in Slack. And then it's like up to you to do something with it. Usually it's not very clear. We do another iteration, another iteration, another iteration. Yeah, and at some point it becomes just too frustrating. So the question is like, how can we really efficiently collaborate with designers? And that's why we built Widget Book Cloud. And with Widget Book Cloud, you will first of all have the chance to host your widget book on all the different branches that you have in your repository and all the different builds. And then secondly, we also give you the chance to only preview those widgets that actually changed. Because while it is great to see the entire widget book with all of the components, you do not actually need to review all of those components all the time. What you need to review is what changed and what was newly added. And what is also frustrating for designers is they also have to go in the Figma file and have to check, okay, which is the design that we have to check those widgets against. And they have to find it, they have to open it somewhere, and with Widget Book, we're basically just combining these two approaches. So we allow you to see on the left side, how does the widget look in Figma, whereas on the right side, how does the widget look in Flutter. You have then the possibility, in the bottom right corner here, to add a precise comment if you feel anything is off, and you can then, on the top right corner, either accept or reject this implementation. By accepting the implementation, amazing, the check that we're running automatically in your pull request turns green. So we're automatically checking if all of those widgets have been accepted or not. If they were rejected, bad news, but the good thing is at least we are prevented from merging here. So what will never happen again is that we ship UI to the client that was not properly implemented. And also, at this point in time, we really focused just on the UI. We haven't included much logic yet. We haven't included much data binding yet. It's really just the core UI, so we can like very quickly iterate at that point with the designer. And then once it's approved, then we can start building a more complex widget. And therefore, it also doesn't get so frustrating if we have to change something. So that's how Widget Book Cloud can really help you to keep your design and code in sync by sharing widgets with designers and simplifying your design reviews. And it's one of the last talks today, so we're already getting in party mode for later. But in the end, it really helps you collaborating with your designer and yeah, making both of you happy and really enjoying working together. So if you would like to try Widget Book yourself, we have a Widget Book challenge at our booth that you're very welcome to join. But you can also just request either early access to Widget Book Cloud or get started with the open source package. Everything is provided on the website. I'm Lucas, co-founder and CEO of Widget Book, and we really want to help you bridge the gap between design and development. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much. We actually have some time for questions, if there's any. So I'll repeat the question first. Could you integrate the Widget Book Cloud with Jira?
So what I think you're meaning is that if the acceptance stuff. Yeah. So it is not, let's say, natively supported, but what works is, and how other companies are already using Widget Book is, for example, if you're using GitHub as the Git provider, once you accept something on Widget Book Cloud, it's going to be checked in GitHub. And there's a GitHub integration with Jira, and that's how you can like leverage that integration. And therefore, I would boldly say, yes, there's a Jira integration.
Yes. So one more question.
Can you self-host the Widget Book Cloud?
The question was, could you self-host the Widget Book Cloud?
Yes, so what you are definitely allowed to do is you can just self-host your open source package, and then you have it hosted in your own environment. But what is then not supported is you don't have that review feature where it's like analyzed which widgets changed. You don't have the Figma integration. So that's something you don't have when you self-host it. The question could also refer to, can you basically self-host everything that is available on Widgetbook Cloud on your service? And unfortunately, that's not possible yet. So far, we decided to really build the features and improve the product and build a great product as quick as possible. And therefore, we haven't yet worked on a self-hosting solution. So currently, it's just a usual SaaS solution. But we're definitely looking into it in the future. And we can definitely, if the case is big enough, also talk about a custom solution there.
Anyone else? Or should I take a question? Because I have a quick one.
Yeah, sure.
So the build runner,
Yes.
if you have a mono repo, does it work with like creating one widget book, or is there going to be multiple?
No, it's one widget book.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lucas. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
So let's quickly, so next people on stage will be Maher and Anton from Hackberry. And they're going to talk about, as far as I understand, an app they built with Flutter and Dartfrog. Yeah. So give a warm applause. Thank you.
One second.
All right. So my name is Anton, and we are Hackberry. And we are here to tell the story of how we built an app, essentially full stack Dart, which is quite exciting. But before we start, I just want to go to the next one. Yeah, so we had a disc throwing competition here. That competition is now done. And as far as I know, we have 3 people that all got 21 points. So if you're here, by the end of this speech, go over to our booth over there to hopefully have a final game if all of you show up. Otherwise, we'll hand out the prizes. But yeah, you can still come over there and just throw some discs for fun. So Hackberry, we are a mobile app development company, and we are focused on cross-platform development. We do strategy work, like what to build, how to build it, research, etc., design and development. And with cross-platform, that means Flutter and another big framework. And what's exciting now is we used to, for smaller startups, recommend a TypeScript sort of based solution if they had needed a backend, because you could use Node and React Native and even, and now with full stack Dart, it enables us to actually recommend it for smaller clients who they can use the same technology or same language across their mobile and backend, which is really, really exciting. So might be a small step for a developer, but I think it's a huge leap for Dart as a language. And here to tell you more about it is my colleague Maher. So give it up for Maher.
Thank you, Anton. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, good. So thank you, Anton. So I'm Maher. I'm from Tunisia. I work for Hackberry. This is my Twitter QR code, or X. And I'm the co-founder of Flutter Tunisia. So I will be talking about breaking barriers in energy app development with Flutter and Dartfrog. So this is the app that we built. It has charts, authentication, real-time data, weather, and a lot of stuff. So the idea behind this app was to allow the customers to monitor the statistics of their solar panels. So our customer came to us to build the app because their customers were complaining about not knowing what their solar panels are producing. So here is a demo. Like, we add the ID of the solar panel. We have here real-time data. We have today's production. We have exported, imported, spot price, and lifetime production. It's all for solar panels. This is historical data, import, export, and production, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. Yeah? This is the app that we built. It has forecast, and it has spot price, because in Sweden, the prices differs per hour. Like at lunchtime, the prices of the electricity are too high, and during the night, the prices are very low. Yeah. So our plan, what makes it great, specifications, how we used offline first, isolates, and why, and Dartfrog. What makes it great? Offline first support. Isolates, multi-threading, so wow. Custom painters, amazing. Shorebird, really nice. And we use Dartfrog for the backend. You can't say it. What? Specifications. So we need to monitor the data from the solar panels. We show the latest results until we have new data available from the API. But we have some limitations in the API. We can only retrieve the data using the same IP address and the same endpoint only once per 5 minutes. So what if the user kills the app and opens it again in less than 5 minutes? So we go for offline first. So we have some packages for offline first. Flutter data, but Flutter data is recommended to be used with Riverpod, but we use Block for state management. I'm sorry for Riverpod users. So no to Flutter data. We have Brick offline first. It's a really good package, but it uses SQL database, and it's really big. So we only monitor data, so no need for a complicated solution. Since we use Block, and we need an easier solution, we went for what is hydrated Block? It's an extension of Block and Hive database. We get hydrated Block. Is it correct? So how it works, we have hydrated Block. We have if the data is not initialized, or if we run the app for the first time, or if we initialize that block for the first time, we should have the initial state. If the new state is not null, we persist the data locally. Otherwise, we have the persisted data, and we add it to the state. So if the block is initialized, yes, we have a new state. If it's not null, we use it and we persist it. Otherwise, we use it as our state. This is how offline first works. If we don't have any data, we check if we have a stored data. If we have, we use it. If not, we don't use it. We don't have any data. Then we used isolates. Who knows isolates? Who used isolates? OK, nice. So for who don't know isolates, your Dart code can perform multiple independent tasks at once using additional processor cores if they are available. So they are useful when the tasks might block the main thread, such as network requests, heavy calculations, or file input-output operations. So yes, we have the main thread, which is the main isolates. The Flutter app runs on the main isolate. We have spot price isolate, and we have power flow isolate. The customer needs the spot price to be updated every hour, and we have this data. We update it every 5 minutes. We don't have streams. We don't use Socket.io, so we wanted it to be simple. But at that time, we can use stream periodic. But why not? Stream periodic disposes after some time, and isolates work even if the application is running in the background. Yeah? But good to know about isolates. We have limited types. OK, about limited types, it supports all the types. It supports map and all the other types that we typically use. But for example, it doesn't support socket type. And I had a problem when I wanted to make some functions reusable. I thought that I have a problem with isolate, but when I used the functions without generic types, it worked. So there is some packages for isolates. There is Flutter background service. This is used by Flutter local notifications. And there is Flutter isolate. This is really good. And it's very good package. But for Flutter isolate, I wanted to use it to make the work easier. But it had some problems because it's not maintained since a long time ago. Yeah. But after that, my manager came to me, and he wanted a new feature. So what is the new feature? We will add a Solar Edge API, which is another API for solar panels monitoring to the application. So we need to implement a new API. The first API is GrooveAt. We implemented it, but we needed a new API. So what we need? One source of data, so a single API address that we'll call the APIs, a single IP address, sorry. Can we use Shorebird to update it? No API tokens are saved in the app or in the local storage, because one token can have access to 1,000 solar panel, and you can monitor it, like you can edit the data as well. Yeah, so our choice is to build a backend. But we have different choices. We have ServerPod. It's a powerful backend. It has a database ready. But we have Dartfrog as well. So I used ServerPod for a personal project. It's very powerful, more complex, but we are limited by time, and we don't need the URM system. So we have ServerPod and Dartfrog. We said no to ServerPod. Dartfrog is lightweight, easy, and yeah, very good. About Dartfrog, it's backend framework for Dart. It's fast, minimalistic, very easy to implement, and easy to deploy it to Cloud Run. Just 10 minutes. So we deployed and delivered the backend in only 10 days. It's because of Dartfrog. It's easy to learn it, and thanks to Felix, he has some tutorials and pair programming sessions. And we already implemented the first API in a separate package. So it was easy to refactor it for us. So our tech stack was Flutter plus Dartfrog. We had this app, Sun for Energy. Yeah? So the statistics, we have 88 active devices on Android, 63 in the App Store. We don't have major problems. So the overview, offline first, isolates, backend with Dart Frog, a full stack Dart application. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? Yeah?
Are you using a monorepo or sharing models between, or separate repos for sharing? How you sharing models between from the backend somehow?
Yeah, so the question was, do you share the models between back and front end with a monorepo or a common package or something?
No, we haven't used monorepo. I'm just having the models in the backend and in the Flutter app. And yeah, actually I have one model that I use for a lot of things, because the backend uses each API models and generates only one model for the energy details. So as you see, this should repeat. So here we have data monitoring. I need to, yeah. Yeah. So here we have data monitoring. That one is import, export, and production. Actually, it returns the same data, but in different timestamps. So I have different times. We don't use a lot of models in this project. Another question? Thank you for your attention. So, if you have any questions, this is our booth, and you can come there. We can discuss everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we still have one more talk to do. So please, if you could wait a bit with the discussions. Okay. I think they will quiet down soon. Okay, so last talk for the day in the exhibition area. We've got Kamil talking about hit tests.
Exactly.
So please give an applause for Kamil.
Hello, everyone. So this is a presentation about a heat test, basically. And yeah, first of all, my name is Kamil. I'm a Flutter programmer. I'm working on Flutter application from 2018. Like commercially, I work from 2019, but like a hobbyist, I started my journey in 2018. And yeah, but this is not the topic of the presentation. So basically, I would like to talk I would like to talk briefly about the heat test, and maybe even not about the heat test exactly, or basically how to click things, or even what is clicking basically in the application, what is pressing things, and so on. And yeah, first of all, this is not a tutorial. You will not learn how to implement your own heat test from A to B or Z, or it is like not is that not work in that way. But this is like overview of how this really works in Flutter and in like very similar other scenarios, like for example web application and so on. And yeah, let's start with the basics. So let's imagine like the gestures in Flutter. They are very simple, right? So let's imagine this is our phone, our application. We have a blue button on the application. And the code for this button could be very simple, like this is only the UI, so this is, for example, container, color blue, and so on, padding. I know that this is not exact representation of this code, but this is just like, you know, example. We can simplify this, and let's assume that this is my widget. We exported that. And if you want this widget to be clickable, all we need to do is to add gesture detector, and for example, the on-tap callback, yeah? And now, let's imagine that this blue box is basically the button. So if we press here, we see in console click. Here we see click. Here we cannot see click because this is not in the space of this widget. And this works in that way, basically. And same thing applies for different gestures, like for example also for mouse region and for onEnter method. So every time our pointer, or should I say cursor, move inside this box, we will see in the console that something is basically entering the widget. And we can also tell the same about, for example, on exit method. So each time our cursor will left this space, this render box, we'll see the exit in our console, yeah? Pretty simple, and so on and so forth. And basically, it's easy. You have just been hired as a senior Flutter developer, but because this is like basic, and I can say thank you very much. This is all we need about the heat test, basically, on our daily basis, yeah? But yeah, the developer's knowledge maybe ends here, but we would like to go deeper inside. So what and how, this is what we will basically will learn from this presentation. So to start it from the beginning, like we should say what exactly are heat tests, and I can provide you with basically notes from the Wikipedia, when you can read that this is in computer graphic programming. Heat testing is the processing of determining whether a user controls cursor, such as mouse or cursor, and so on and so on. But this also gives us nothing really about the implementation and how this works in the framework itself. So this is a very like high-level definition of heat testing. And the Flutter way, it works like that. So this is how it starts from the gesture that is for the pointer data that is provided to the application to like the final gesture that our application handles. So first of all, our application receives the onPointer data packet. So this method is called with the information about the pointer data. Basically, this is an engine event. So this is very raw information. Basically, it's parsed from JSON or something like that. And then pointer event converts that from converts that from like pointer event, like the engine pointer, to the framework pointer. So to the class, to the model that we basically use in the application. And there, the gesture binding receives a pointer down event. And the gesture binding is like widgets binding implements the gesture binding. So this is like the mixin that is used internally by widgets binding. And yeah, and we receive on pointer down event. It's very important because we use heat tests only on pointer down events. So this is when we perform our heat testing. And yeah, we receive pointer down event and we perform heat tests. And the interesting part here is basically the point 4 and 5. So basically, when we start the heat test protocol, we check whether elements were hit, and then the element that were hit like receives this information in the handle event callback, yeah, in the method. So this is more like overview of this, how does it work basically. Let's imagine that this is our main application. This is a render box in which, for example, you can have other elements and maybe even one more nested in one of them. And of course, other method for Flutter. So the heat starts from the down of the tree, from the root, and goes back from the leaves. So this is also very important, but we will know that later, why it is important. So yeah. So let's imagine that we press this part of the screen. We here like trigger the pointer down event, and the Flutter starts the heat testing. So I don't know if this is visible, but now Flutter framework tests the root component of this widget tree, widget structure. So first of all, this purple element is tested, and yeah, it is hit. So we like adding this to the stack of elements that were hit. Then we check the green elements, and green elements, of course, first green element from the left is not hit, so we remove that because like there is no need for them to be like they like basically do not need to process any events because it is not in their space. The second one is hit, and the third one is not. So basically we have a very simple structure. 2 elements were hit. And yeah, now we provided them events from the opposite side. So basically, we reverse that and provide pointer down event to each of these render boxes, because basically there are render boxes, the information about the pointer down event. And that was basically the easy part. How this really work is like the other story. So last year, I made a presentation in Flutter Wikings about how to draw undrawable, and this was the presentation of how to implement the custom render box. And then I was speaking about heat tests. I also showed that we have few methods for heat testing, and the most important one is the heat test method. We are using it to check whether our widget, whether the point is inside our render box, basically. So if our render box have a custom shape, we check, we return true from this method every time, and this is exactly inside this shape. Yeah. And yeah, to simplify this a little bit, this method might look like this, basically. So what we are doing here, we checking if the position, the offset here is basically the position of the pointer down event. We check if this position is inside our size. If it is, we can assume that our render box was hit by this event. And then we check children. So if at least one children is hit by this hit test, we can add ourselves basically to the result of heat test. So we are adding the box heat test entry inside with the reference to our render box current. And if children are not hit, we basically perform hit test for self. So basically there is a helper method hit self, and it returns true when the widget is hit. Like hit test self is like self-explanatory. Okay, and yeah, if we were hit, we return true. If not, we return false. And what is very important here, we are adding ourselves to result, because this array will be later used to like provide our render box with events. And yeah, and when we return true, so basically when we add ourselves to result, then there is a chance that our widget will receive, our render box will receive this pointer event, and we can handle that. But I also mentioned there that these are like not gestures. This is like a raw pointer event, so we need to process them. For example, you can use tap gesture recognizer to do so. So to like add this to this widget, we need to, for example, add the on pointer down callback. We can add check here. So if event is pointer down event, we call on pointer down event. And then in our render box, or should I say, stateful widget, we add on pointer down callback and define tap gesture recognizer with on tap method provided from the body of the state. Yeah. So every time the pointer down event will be provided to the tap gesture recognizer, it basically analyzes this event and it like determines whether the on tap gesture was basically need to be called or whether not. Yeah. And yeah, back to the current presentation. There is also a very important thing in the hint testing. This is basically a gesture disambiguation, and this is all about about the gesture recognizer, and about them adding the pointer to the pointer router. So basically, when our render box is hit by the hit test, what gesture recognizer basically do is it adds it registers the callback for this pointer, for this particular pointer, for this particular finger on the screen to the pointer router. And every time this pointer, this finger moves across the screen, we are not performing hit test one more time, for example, for drag or something like that. We just receiving the updates for this exact pointer through the pointer router, yeah? And gesture recognizer is also very important because he registers the gesture itself in a gesture arena, and the pointers they're fighting, and the pointer who wins the gesture arena will receive the pointers, and the other one will be removed from that and will no longer receive updates, yeah? And to describe it on an example, I can simplify this previous graph and show you that here. Let's imagine that this purple box has a horizontal drag gesture detector, and the green one has a vertical drag, yeah? So if we touch the screen, it is almost impossible for us to keep the finger in a single place. Every time we moving our finger, but only 1 or 2 pixels left or right. And the gesture detectors define the rules that needs to be met in order to receive events. So for example, if we move our pointer, this is also very important that if we put the finger on the screen, both gesture detectors register themselves on a gesture arena. And if we move ourselves to left, it's like the purple one said that I won, basically, and the green one is no longer valid gesture, yeah? So now we can, and also this purple one is basically a gesture recognizer, as I said before, and this is even a horizontal drag gesture recognizer, yeah? And now if we move our finger to the top or to the bottom, it doesn't really matter, because, for example, if this is a list with horizontal scroll and vertical scroll, if we're starting scrolling horizontally, it will be not possible to scroll the list vertically. This is because the horizontal gesture recognizer basically wants the arena, and the vertical one will no longer receive an update, yeah? So now we can move from left to the right, and it will be working, but to the top and bottom, it doesn't really matter no longer, yeah? And the same thing applies to other type of pointers or especially gestures. So for example, if we now press the screen and we have a double tap, and a double tap gesture detector, the tap will say that, basically the tap gesture recognizer never says that I won basically the arena, but the double tap after some amount of time will say that, okay, it's no longer double tap gesture and will left the arena, so the tap will win and we will receive the on tap gesture, yeah? And still this is the easy part, because in programming of the gesture recognizer at hit testing, we have a lot of things that need to be handled. For example, from the previous example of the mouse events, we need to also compare the states. So let's imagine that right now we have a mouse enter and mouse exit gesture recognizer. So when we move our finger from the one box to another one, we can see that from the first event to the second one, the one entry in our hit test result is missing. And because of that, we can compare those states and say, okay, we no longer have this green box in our hit test results, so we can say that this was no longer hit, so therefore on mouse exit should be called for that particular render box, yeah? And yeah, we can see that because of missing green box. And yeah, still that was the easy point in the easy part, because we basically need to handle multiple pointers of the screen. It could be up to 10 or even more pointers of the screen. And there are also multiple challenges based on different problems for an environment and so on. For example, the device changes. On a Windows platform, it's possible to switch from the normal cursor mode to pointer one, and the hit tests are basically different. Also, the accessibility feature is very interesting here, because, for example, on older Android devices, the talkbox basically can press the screen by like faking the hit test. So basically, if we said like to press this button, he not calls the semantic callback that is declared in the semantic tree, but basically faking on pointer that even on the center of that shape, yeah? And this might be problematic. So there are many multiple challenges that we need to handle here, and I will never ever say about the transforms because this is very complicated things. You can see that in the code, in the Dart code, because this also need to be handled properly. But yeah, that's still not all, and there are many things that we need to think of. And yeah, but there is also a very important question that people ask, is basically like, this is a framework thing, yeah? So why do I need it? Do I need to use that on my daily basis or something like that? And I found a very good example of why it is worth to know that there are things like gesture detectors, there are things like gesture arena, gesture binding, and so on. And for example, we want to change our long press gesture from 500 milliseconds to like 250. Yeah, so we would like to switch from 400 milliseconds to 250. And yeah, let's open our IDE and see how to get this to work. I mean, yeah, Google it, because we do not know how to do it. And after Googling that, we can see the first result on the Google that, yeah, on Stack Overflow, let's scroll it down. We can see that someone proposed to use a gesture detector, some magic with on-pan cancel, on-pan down, and a timer, basically. We can see the other one example. Here we can also see that there is a gesture detector, there is a timer defined for that. Okay, why not? Let's see the third page, and here we can see that there is a timer with gesture detector, on-pan cancel, on-pan down. Like, okay, why not, yeah? But there is a problem, and there is one big bad thing in this example, because let's imagine that this is our horizontal or vertically scrolled list. We touch our screen with our finger, and after 250 milliseconds, so after the long press duration, our callback will be called because of this timer. But this was not handled by the gesture recognizer, so basically there were no gesture recognizer that said, okay, I want the gesture arena, so the long press happened and nothing more will happen. So because of that, now we can scroll the list, and this is not the case. This should not happen. So after long press callback is called, it should be no longer possible to scroll the list. Yeah. So the correct solution for that is even simple. So we can use our button widget as an example, and instead of providing gesture detector, we can use a raw gesture detector. And the tricky part, we can define gestures that we would like to use for that gesture detector. Yeah. So here I define the long press gesture recognizer because I really need that, and also I use the utility tool to create the instance of the long press gesture recognizer with handlers. So yeah, here I creating my long press gesture recognizer with the duration of 250 milliseconds, and here I can assign some method that will be called on long press. Yeah. So this is very straightforward, very simple solution, and this is even built-in widget to the Flutter framework. And now the change is visible to the user because now you can wait for 250 milliseconds, the callback will be called, and it is no longer possible to scroll the list. Yeah? So there is a huge difference, and this might be not, you might think that this is not important, you even do not know that, for example, when you press, when you touch the screen for longer than 250 milliseconds that you can, this is not important basically, yeah? But if you will implement this example with timer, you will see that the application behaves in a way that you do not really want it to be. You will see that this is not like the standard, yeah? This is something that needs to be fixed. And yeah, I should probably be ending. So yeah, do you have any question about this? Sorry for the speed run, but I know that I do not have time basically for this topic. Sorry for that.
Super great talk. So is there any questions? No? Okay. Then I will leave it with... Oh, one question.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Could you come closer? Maybe even...
Is there a higher level affordance to create that gesture recognizer than the one presented in that slide?
So if there is a different way to doing that?
Yeah, just slightly higher level. I mean, it just... Yeah.
But to be honest, this is not really like low-level programming, basically. This is not even very hard. This might look like that, but basically everything, like the thing that you are doing here, you're defining the map with the gesture that you would like to use. So for example, the long press gesture recognizer. And then you basically define the factory for it. And that's all, basically. So this is like one more thing that you need to do in opposite to the gesture detector. But basically, the gesture detector works in a very similar way, like under the hood. But yeah, I don't know if there is a like more simpler API for that. But I know that this works very great, and it's not that hard that it looks like on the, like when you see this for the first time.
One more question.
How do you do it if you want to enable long pressing and then stroke?
If you want to do both, yeah? You can then use this example from Stack Overflow with timer. This will work. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know even how to do it correctly. Like, probably I will need to look for that. But I don't know if this is something that will be like common for the users. That might look, like, might be basically be strange to them, because after long press, basically, most of the time when you do performing a long press gesture, there's something happening. For example, on your Instagram Reels, everything is paused. So we even want to move the finger down to see what is below the finger, for example. Or, for example, for some posts, you're pressing and waiting for long press gesture, and then, for example, bottom sheet or something like that is opened. Yeah. So this is very like edge case, but I think that there might be a solution for that, but I don't know it, basically. Sorry for that.
Yes. So is there anyone else? Or are we happy to close this off? Perfect timing. So in about 20 minutes, so 20 minutes past, there will be panel discussion, and after that, closing remarks. So make sure to not miss that one. And I will leave this with, we also had to change the duration of the long press, but making it longer, 10 seconds. But our issue was if you released the button, like tap and drag before with the timer example, we always triggered instead. So it was the opposite. Yeah. So thank you all for today in this stage.
Thank you.
And we'll see you around.